Hello, welcome to my channel. My name is Jenny. I'm from JennyCardDesigns. Thanks so much for stopping by to spend some time with me here today. My YouTube channel contains content that is intended to share paper crafting, tutorials, and inspiration with all of you. I hope that you enjoy. Okay, so today I wasn't quite sure what I was going to be sharing with you today. I have a bunch of ideas and sometimes I get carried away. Sometimes I have too many ideas, too many things to choose from, and then I get just like so overwhelmed with all of these things. So I'm not sure if that makes any sense, but anyways, here goes. Okay, so here is my beautiful Gina K Designs Forever Flowers card kit. Now, I'm like many of you, I buy a lot of crafts that I don't get to use all the time. I really wanted to sort of take a few steps back from doing that, but then then Gina K comes out with such a beautiful kit. Wonderful value for the money. If the kit is still available, I will link it in the description box down below. So basically, I want to show you my process. So I got this beautiful kit full of all this lovely stuff, and I wanted to record a video sharing how I create mini slimline cards with some of the products in this kit. And this is what happened to me. I'm just going to take you through what I have in my kit right now. Okay, so I started stamping these beautiful flowers, and I stamped one. Looks great. Okay, great. And I did nothing with it. So I colored one of them, but I wasn't happy with it. I'll see if I can find it. Anyways, so I started there. I also took a 12 by 12 sheet. Oh, here's my colored flower. Here we go. There's my colored flower. I wasn't happy with the result. I felt it just wasn't nice, and maybe I'll end up using it. Who knows? But anyways, so that's that. I also cut up a bunch of the cardstock, as you can see here. I added some black and white because my idea was to take the cardstock and create a set of slimline cards, which I used a 12 by 12 sheet of pattern paper, and I started making slimline cards. And then out of the scraps from this, I cut the birthday die and the shadow, the birthday word out of white cardstock, and the shadow out of a scrap that I used from the card base. And I wanted it to be birthday cards. So I did a mass production. I did 6 of those. And then I just got tired of the process. I thought, this is not interesting at all. This isn't fun anymore. I got bored of it. Okay, so now what I've got is a dirty stamp and a half colored project that I'm not happy with and a bunch of junk. So then I had a new idea. So I thought, let's just clean up all this stuff. I'll put it back into my kit, and when I feel inspiration, I'll come back to these bits and pieces and start over again. But in the meantime, I'm going to take out one of these stamps. I want to make a project with this beautiful, beautiful design, and I have an idea for that. So this video is going to be a project that I'm going to make with this stamp, and I'm going to save this for another day. Okay, so that's gone. All right, so we're going to use this stamp set from the Forever Flowers kit. Okay, I had a little bit of technical difficulties. Hopefully this worked itself out. Okay, so we're going to use this stamp from the Forever Flowers kit, and this is the Forever Flowers stamp set, I think. No, this is the Lace Flowers. So I'm going to use this large stamp, and then I've also got this little notepad of paper. So this little pad comes from the dollar store, and it has like 5 or 6 packs in it for a few bucks. It's pretty cheap. It's nothing expensive. Now what I want to do is create a gift for some of the ladies in my office with these pads. So I'm going to show you how to use the stamp and some cardstock to create a beautiful gift for some people in your life. Okay, so that being said, let's get out some supplies and see what we're going to need to create this notepad gift. I'm going to grab a Misty and a paper trimmer. Now, since my other Misty is in my card kit, I'm going to have to use my regular Misty. And I think I'm going to cut down some cardstock. But now when you're doing this cut, you just want to be aware that we want this to fold over the back of our notepad. So we need to measure the notepad. So this notepad measures 4 inches. Just move this out of the way. 4 inches by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.5. So 4 by 5.5. So I think we'll need a piece of cardstock that is 4, and then we'll just cut it along the 11-inch side. So it'll be 4 by 8.5. So let's make that cut first. Which way am I going here? So we're going to cut that right at 4 inches. Okay, we'll cut another piece that measures 4 by 5.5, the exact size of our notepad. 4 by 5.5. So this part is going to be sort of the backer to cover up any of the adhesion that we're going to glue down with this piece of cardstock. It'll all make sense in a moment. Okay, so now we're going to need to score this piece of cardstock. And I'll just pull out my scoreboard. And our first cut is, or our first score rather, our first score is going to need to be at 5.5 inches, as large as the notepad is. So I just want to make sure that this is lining up the way I want it. Okay, so that's going to be perfect. And then we need to figure out how wide the notepad is. So our notepad is exactly 1/2 inch wide, or sorry, 1/4 inch. It's exactly 1/4 inch wide. So if you want to follow along and create this project, you're going to need to measure across the 8.5 inch side, we'll score at 5.5 inches, and then 5 7/8 of an inch, which is 1 notch past 5 3/4. Okay, so I don't want to score this yet, or crease it rather. So I just want to make sure that everything is going to fit nicely. It looks good. Okay, all right, so now I've got my Misty, and I'm going to put my cardstock in my Misty, and I'm going to position my cardstock where I want it, and I'll use my magnet to pin it down, and I'm going to pull off this beautiful large floral element, and I'm going to position it right smack dab in the center of my notebook cover. Okay, and once I'm happy with where it's lined up, I will pick it up at the door of my Misty. Now, for those of you who watch Jennifer McGuire videos, Kathy Zielski, pretty much, you know, anybody who's anybody is working with the Debbie tool. Check this out. This is super duper cool. So this is like maybe it's a doorknob or something like that, or a curtain finial, and a nice piece of wood and a furniture protector pad, and it's so unbelievably well made. Debbie sent this to me so that I could share it with all of you, just how fabulous it is, and I cannot get over how amazing this is. It feels so nice to hold in your hand, and personally I suffer from bursitis in my shoulders. I have really poor posture and my shoulders are always curled in, so I suffer with migraines and headaches and things like that, and this Debbie tool has really changed the way that I stamp. So thank you so much, Debbie, for sending this to me. I'm super excited. For those of you who don't know what this is to help you apply pressure to your Misty. So I put my Debbie tool on the door of my Misty, and I'm able to apply pressure nice and evenly and push across my stamp and make sure that it gets good connection with the cardstock without having to overly exert myself. Or if my arm is sore or my hands are tired, I can hold it sort of sideways to get my pressure. I can hold it, I can just put my hand on top and rest it and push, and it's just amazing. I love it. And I will link to Debbie's website where you can check these out if you're interested in purchasing one. Okay, so that being said, I'm going to get this stamp picked up on the door of my Misty. And now, since this is the first time that I'm using this stamp, I'm going to condition it. And by conditioning it, I'm just going to rub it. I'm going to rub the oils from my hands all over the stamp until it becomes cloudy. And then I know none of that sticky photopolymer residue is left on the stamp. And basically it just helps for the stamp to be able to take the ink better. So for this project, I'm going to do some heat embossing, and I want to make sure that I get a good transfer of ink. I'm going to use some watermark ink, and sometimes it's hard to see on cardstock, so I'm happy with that. I'm going to grab some embossing tools. So all of my embossing tools are kept in this little kit. I find that this is just the most convenient for me, and it's just easy for me to transport around my craft room. So I keep everything in this little bucket, and I've got all the stuff I need for heat embossing. I've got some paint brushes, a Versamarker pen, I got all my favorite embossing powders, embossing magic bag, and yeah, so that's a really cool way to store everything. I like the way that everything is kind of contained in one spot. So, okay, so back to what I was doing. I'll grab the first one I've got here. I got Versamark. I'm going to take that with an anti-static powder bag, and I think I'll go with Brutus Monroe Alabaster. So this is a fine detail, excuse me, it is an ultra fine detail embossing powder. And I'll grab my brush as well. And I'll put everything off to the side, and I'm going to grab a coffee filter. We'll need that to funnel my embossing powder back in. So, okay. Starting with my anti-static powder bag, I am going to just pat that down all over the front of my cardstock. Make sure that none of my embossing powder doesn't stick where I don't want it. And then I keep this little sweeper brush just to get off any excess powder that might be sitting in the way. So I get my cardstock nice and cleaned up, sweep off my extra powder, and then I'm going to ink my stamp with my Versamark watermark ink. So I'm going to make sure that this is good and covered. I want to cover all of the areas of my stamp. Okay, I'm happy with that. I'm going to close the door of my Misty, and I'm going to grab my Debbie tool. And I'm just going to apply pressure to my stamp to make sure I get good transfer of ink. Okay. And make sure I'm going to open the door, and I'll reposition my cardstock, make sure it's in there nice and tight. And I'm going to reapply my embossing ink one more time, just for good measure, to make sure that I didn't miss anything. This is going to be a gift, so I want to make sure that it's, you know, as perfect as I can possibly get it. Okay, so we'll stamp one more time, making sure that I get good pressure. Okay, I think that's good. Looks like I got everything. Not sure if you can see that, kind of, sort of, a little bit. Okay, so I'm just going to set this aside for now. I'll clean my stamp later, and I'll take my coffee filter, spread it out, and I'm going to dump my embossing powder over top of my image to make sure that I cover it nice and good. I use the whole jar of embossing powder. I don't want to miss a single spot. And then I dump it onto my coffee filter and tap off any of the excess. And if there's any spare bits here and there, I will wipe them away. Sometimes I like to give a good flick to the cardstock, and it helps any loose bits sort of bouncing around just come off. Then I'll tap it from the back. I think that's good. This is going to be so pretty. I'm super excited to see what this looks like. Okay, let's get my embossing powder back into the jar. Okay. Wow, no spills. Lucky me. That's rare. All right, now I'm going to grab my heat tool, which is stuck. Oh, I hope I don't unplug anything. Okay, I'm gonna grab my heat tool and I'm going to turn it on, heat it up before I bring it to my cardstock. I wanna make sure that it's good and hot before I bring it to my paper because I don't want too much warping going on here. So I will do that, I'll warm it up and I'll be right back. Okay, all of my embossing powder is melted. You can see the design on my cardstock. And now I want to bring some color to this beautiful design. And I just want to sort of help flatten it out a bit while the embossing powder is kind of warm. It'll just like reshape the cardstock. Sometimes I find my bone folder is good to sort of like help sort of uncurl it, like in the opposite direction. You're always going to get warping with embossing powder, so I mean it's almost impossible to avoid, but a little bit is okay. All right, so now I'm going to ink blend some beautiful colors onto this cardstock. I just haven't decided what colors to use yet. Let me go see what I can find. Okay, so I couldn't decide, so I got a whole bunch. I'm gonna do a rainbow. So one of my favorite rainbow combinations for Gina K Designs starts like this. Lovely lavender, powder blue, apple mint, lemon drop, and peach Bellini. So I'm going to make a beautiful rainbow pattern on my cardstock using these 5 colors of ink. So what I don't want is to sort of get any ink up on top of this little fold here. So what I'm going to do is grab some Post-it notes and kind of like mask off that area. So when I do my ink blending, it doesn't go over onto this back part. Now, for the first time on Jenny Card's YouTube channel, you're going to see the one and only Gina K Designs Blender Brush Caddy and Gina K Designs Blender Brushes. Da, 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 da. Look at this. These are almost brand new. They've barely been used. I haven't had much time to craft, but I sure have had time to shop. So I'm going to use these today and blend my beautiful panel of rainbows with my Gina K Designs Blender brushes. All right, so I think what I'd like to do is start with the peach Bellini. I'm going to start in the bottom with the peach Bellini and work my way across diagonally and blend the colors in together. So let's see how this turns out. Okay, I'm going to grab my orange brush and I'm going to ink up nice and good. And I think I'm going to grab a scrap of cardstock or scrap paper. I do have a silicone mat that I can use for ink blending, but I didn't have that ready for this video, so we'll have to find that later. So I'm going to just use a piece of printer paper and I'm going to ink up my brush nice and good with my peach Bellini ink. And I'm going to start off the paper. I'm going to start on the printer paper and work my way into the cardstock. I don't want anything super harsh. I want some really beautiful pastel springy looking colors. And I can always go back and add color, but you can't kind of take it away. So that's something to just keep in mind when you want to ink blend. Go lighter because you can add color in. Don't go too heavy because you can't take the color away. So I'm going to stop there with that one. That looks good. Okay, and I'll just leave my brush in the lid there. Next up, we're going to use lemon drop. And I'll ink up my blender brush nice and good. And start off the paper and blend into the peach Bellini and around for like, you know, this sort of angled rainbow looking pattern. You just want to be careful that we don't go too thick so that I have enough room to add in all of my colors. Okay. Super pretty, super soft. So blend those two colors together. Okay. Now let's move along to the next color, which is going to be Apple Mint. I'm working in rainbow order to make sure that my colors blend together nicely and don't make any mucky colors. So I'll ink up my brush nice and good and start off my paper. I'll tap off any of the excess, start in a circular motion and blend into the yellow and across the page. Oh, I should mention my cardstock I'm using today is Neenah Classic Crest Solar White. I don't think I mentioned that earlier in the video. I'm using the 110 pound Neenah cardstock, and it's really nice cardstock for ink blending. It blends beautifully. Look at that. Okay, next color, we're going to use powder blue, and I'll ink up my blue blending brush and start off the paper, dab a bit off, and blend into my green. Ooh, look at that, so pretty. I love Apple Mint and powder blue together. The two colors are just gorgeous. So pretty. And if you're not aware of Gina K Designs ink formula, the ink kind of may look darker to start off with, but as it dries into the paper, it smooths out, and so you might see blotchy lines, but as it dries, it comes almost to like an airbrushed finish. So Gina K Designs is my favorite ink. Probably if you watch my channel, you know that anything Gina K Designs is my favorite. I just love her products and her colors, her inks, her stamps. I love it all. Okay, next color, we're going to use the lovely lavender. And we need a purple blending brush for this one. And we'll ink it up nice and good. This is a very light color. And we'll ink it. It's almost like a pink. When we blend that right into the powder blue, it'll darken it up and give us that color that I'm looking for. So pretty. Yeah, look at that. Oh, I love this. I love a good rainbow, you know. It's just my thing. Just want to darken this lovely lavender up a bit. Now, my post-it note has come up multiple times. Maybe you're going to be smarter and use Masking Magic or something a lot better than what I used. I'm not perfect. I don't ever claim to be. So, whatever it is, what it is. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my Peach Bellini because I think it could use just a little bit darker. Just a hair. Bring more of that orangey shade in. Yeah. Oh, this is lovely. Okay, so now that I have a gigantic mess of ink pads, I'm going to clean these up and put my blender brushes back into their space in the caddy. And find my lids for my ink pads. Okay, now I'm going to grab a paper towel or Kleenex or something along those lines. Looks like we're going with a microfiber cloth because that's what I have available right now. And I'm just going to wipe over top of my embossing powder. So what's happened is the ink has resisted that embossing powder. No, it's the other way around. The embossing powder has resisted the ink. So any of the ink that goes on top of the embossing just sits there, and we can wipe it away, and then our image stays nice and shiny white. And we have our beautiful rainbow pattern in the background. Lovely. So there is, well, it's not too bad. I thought it was going to be terrible. I did get a little bit there, you can see, but it's not terrible. I've seen worse. I've done worse. All right, so next we're going to fold our crease marks that we made. And I'm just going to burnish them in with my bone folder because I want them to fold freely on my notepad. Okay, so there we go, looks good. Now we're going to take our notepad and just sort of lay it on there, and I want to glue this to the back of my notepad. So what I've done is I've given myself a little bit of room there to like open and close it. So it's not like super snug. You know, it gives you that little bit of space to open and close your notepad. So I'm going to glue down just this back piece. I'm not going to put any glue across that top crease. So I'm going to apply some adhesive to this part of the cardstock. And make sure you use some good strong stuff here. You don't want your gift to fall apart. I just have tape runner here. I think this should do. Should be okay. I'll just put some extra. Okay. And then I'm going to line this up to my notepad. Okay, looks good. There we go. And I'll press it all in. Use my bone folder to make sure that that is good and adhered. Perfect. Okay. Lovely. So now you have the option, if you'd like to sort of cover the back. You can ink blend on there too. As a matter of fact, maybe that's what we'll do. We will ink blend the pattern going the other way so that it kind of ties in together nicely. So let's do that. So we've got all that done, all that ink blending. Looks beautiful. Make sure that there's nothing sitting on top. Should absorb into the paper nicely. And now we're going to glue this to the back of our notepad. I'll just apply that to my notepad. Beautiful. Look at that. How cute is that? Isn't that the cutest little gift ever? Super fun. Okay, so to add a finishing touch to this, I've got a little bit of baker's twine and a pen to go along with it. Now, I think that black sort of really helps rainbows to pop off. So I've got a black pen and a black and white piece of baker's twine that I think just will match lovely with our little notepad. So I'm going to open it up and I'm going to tie a little I'm going to cut off a piece of my baker's twine, and I'm cutting off, I think I'll cut off 24 inches. So I'll just use my grid mat. I'll just use my grid mat to measure out 24 inches. And I'll just cut. And I'm going to wrap it around my book like so. And actually, let's go this way. I keep changing my mind about what I want to do. This is sort of what keeps happening in my craft room with the projects that I'm working on, because I change my mind a lot. And then I get sort of bored with what I'm doing, and I don't like how much effort I've put into something, and, you know, it's like an incomplete project. I feel like I have a craft room full of incomplete projects. Let me know if you guys go through that too. Sort of like, not a creative slump, but so many ideas and not enough desire to finish said ideas. So I'm just going to tie a cute little bow, if I can get it to sort of do what I want. Move along. Okay. And now we'll just add this little pin into the string. And there we go. We have a beautiful, cute little gift. And you can wrap this up in some cellophane bags or something and give it away as a cute little Easter gift. Actually, I think I may have a bag that we can put that in. So we can put this into here, peel off the peel and stick, and voila! We have a cute, ready to go Easter gift. I think these are great little office gifts, or just sort of any gift. Something fun to make and super cheap. Didn't cost a lot. probably for a few bucks, I'm going to get 6 different notepads for the ladies in my office. That is it for today's video. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to spend it here with me while I craft away in my craziness. I hope that you've enjoyed this video. For all the products that I've used, I will leave in the description box down below. Coming up on screen are a couple of videos I think you may enjoy. Have yourself a lovely day, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!